My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today I'm going to show you the 5 guitarists from the 70s that Jimmy Page likes. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment. Well, back in 1975, Jimmy Page, when Led Zeppelin was still active, he gave an interview to Rolling Stone magazine, and he mentioned some of his favorite guitarists from that era. And we selected what he said about those guitarists over the years, and we're going to talk about a little bit of his connection with some of them. So the first one is Jimi Hendrix. I mean, every guitarist from that era who was playing guitar at that era was influenced at some level by Jimi Hendrix. I mean, he was really the one who changed the course of the electric guitar. And in the interview with Rolling Stone magazine, when he was asked who were some of his favorite players, he said this about Hendrix. Well, let's see. We've lost the best guitarist any of us ever had. That was Hendrix. So that's really what is his answer to Rolling Stone magazine. He believed that Jimi Hendrix was the best guitarist that ever existed by that time. And his admiration for and respect for Hendrix continued, obviously. And in 1993, he said that from a really interesting thing is that from a producer's point of view, the Hendrix albums were really, really excellent. And I mean, Jimmy Page is a studio guy. He was a session guitarist, really respected, one before Led Zeppelin, and he produced all the Led Zeppelin albums, which are masterpieces. And this is the interesting thing that he said about the production side of Hendrix albums. And they didn't have the chance to play together, but they almost met each other. Did you know this? Even though Page was a respected session musician, and in the 60s, he still was not a big star when Jimi Hendrix was in the music scene in the late 60s. And they never had the chance to talk or play, but they almost met each other. And he remembered this in an interview with Rolling Stone in 2012. And this is the story of when they almost met each other. It wasn't a lack of will. I wanted to see him, but I was doing studio dates and touring with the Yardbirds. Jeff Beck came around. He was telling me about how this guy got up at London Polytechnic, jammed, and taken them all by surprise. I remember I was back in London after a Zeppelin tour. Hendrix was playing the next night at the Royal Albert Hall. I was pretty shocked. I thought, I'd really like to see him, but I heard all these wonderful stories of him playing in clubs. I said, I'll wait and see him next time around. But for me, there wasn't going to be a next time. The only time I actually saw him was at a club called Salvation in New York. He was across the room from where I was sitting with some friends. I was going to go over and say, I'm sorry I missed the London concert, but then he was leaving with the people who were with him. He looked a little worse for wear. I thought there would be a more favorable time. In the end, there wasn't. So sadly, Jimmy Page had the chance to see Hendrix in the same room, but he didn't talk to him or saw him play. And the second one that he mentioned was Clarence White. He, just like Jimmy Page, he also worked extensively as a session musician. Some of the artists he recorded with were the Everett Brothers, Joe Cocker, Ricky Nelson, Pat Boone, the Monkees, Randy Newman, and Jackson Browne. He tragically died at the age of 29 in 1973 after being struck by a drunk driver. And in the interview with Rolling Stone in 1975, this is what Jimmy Page said about him. The other guitarist I started to get into died also, Clarence White. He was absolutely brilliant. Gosh. This is what he said about Clarence, and he also revealed that in an interview with Guitar Player that Clarence White and Jim Parsons' invention inspired parts of Led Zeppelin's classic In Through the Outdoor. And this is what he said in the interview with Guitar Player explaining this. I heard the Byrds' 1970 Untitled album. It's a live album, and I thought, what the hell is he doing? And it turned out it was Clarence White playing on the Jim Parsons and Clarence White invention, which was his idea to make the string pitch up. You can hear Clarence use it on the Byrds' Sweetheart of the Rodeo. But the live album is where I first heard and thought, I can't phantom this out. I don't know how it's done. Albert Lee was the first person I saw using the string bender when he was playing with Eric Clapton. And this is what he said about Clarence, which was another maybe forgotten guitarist that Jimmy Page admired. And the third one that he mentioned in that interview with Rolling Stone is Amos Garrett. And this is what he said about them in the interview with Rolling Stone. On a totally different style, the Control, the guy who played on the Maria Modaur single, Midnight at the Oasis. Amos Garrett, he's Les Paul oriented. Amos was born in Detroit, Michigan, and raised in Toronto, Canada. He was best known for the famous guitar solo he recorded in the song Midnight at the Oasis that Jimmy Page mentioned it. And during his career, he also recorded with many other artists like Stevie Wonder, Todd Rundgren, and Bonnie Raitt. He recorded with more than 150 artists, and he was also a writer, and he wrote several books about music. One of them was Amos Garrett, String Bending, a Masterclass. So you can see that Jimmy Page was really into string bending, since he mentioned it, Amos Garrett and Clarence White. And the next one that he mentioned was Les Paul, the guy who created the guitar, which had his name. And this is what he said to Rolling Stone. Les Paul is the one, really. We wouldn't be anywhere if he hadn't invented the electric guitar. Les Paul was not from the 70s, but this was a guitarist that he mentioned it in the 70s. Although he wasn't really famous because of his music, Les Paul, he was the one who made it possible, and it was Jimmy Page's favorite guitar, kind of guitar. Even though Page used many guitar models with Led Zeppelin and solo, like the Fender Telecaster. The two most famous ones are the Les Paul models, he was best known for using the Gibson Les Paul Deluxe and the double neck Gibson EDS 1275. As the name says, those guitars wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Les Paul, who simply was one of the pioneers of the solid body electric guitar. Jimmy Page had the chance to meet the American inventor and guitarist many times and even play with him. And he even received an advice from Les Paul that he revealed to JQ magazine in 2021. And this is the advice that Les Paul gave to Jimmy Page. I think it's more satisfying to throw down the gauntlet to yourself, take on the challenge, and then come out with something you've quite really pushed yourself to, actually something unique and new. Les Paul said to me, you know what you can do? Same picture, different frame. So you never lose the main part of your character. That's recognized, but you adjust the framing of the picture. That's what Les Paul said to Jimmy Page. And we reached the final guitarist that he mentioned in that interview with Rolling Stone magazine in 1975, who was Elliott Randall, who was maybe best known for his work with Steely Dan. And this is what he said. Another one is Elliott Randall, the guy who guested on the first Steely Dan album. He's great. And curiously, back in 2016, and there's a video here on YouTube of Jimmy Page rating from 0 to 10 some guitarists, and the song is played on an iPad for him. The name of the guitarist is not mentioned. He only hears the song and then he rates the guitarist. And when the interviewer played the Steely Dan fantastic track, Really in the Ears, Page immediately said, "Oh, I know this, that's cool. I like that one. Steely Dan, classic. That's got to be 12. So this is what he said. And he continued saying, "The thing is really, I love all the guitar playing. That's exactly the thing. Hearing the guitar when I was a kid and just really appreciating even then. It's 6 strings of an electric guitar, but everyone will take on it their characters, so they are different. That's the cool thing about it." That's what he said about Steely Dan song and about guitar playing in this interview. I just mentioned it. And Elliott Randall was a really famous and praised session guitarist, and he, besides recording with Steely Dan, he also played on the song Fame by Irene Cara. And other musicians he recorded with were Richie Havens, Peter Criss, the drummer for Kiss, the original drummer, Peter Frampton, Yoko Ono and John Lennon, and Asia, yes, the super group, the progressive super group with Carl Palmer and many other incredible members. And he also worked on the soundtrack of many classic movies. Some of them were The Warriors, released in 1975, a classic. If you haven't seen this movie, it's great. The Blues Brothers, 1980, and Fame, released in 1980 as well. And this is it. I hope you liked the video. It's an interesting take on some of Jimmy Page's favorite guitarists from the 70s. And obviously Les Paul appeared much before that, but he was a guitarist that Jimmy Page mentioned it back then. And that's it. I hope you liked the video. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you want to read more and visit the article we wrote about it, you can find all the links to these interviews, to the Rolling Stone interview, which is quite interesting as well. You can go to description and visit the article we wrote about it. Okay? Thank you for watching, and I see you later.